Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It's Thursday. All of today's guests, including Farhan, standing by, brought to you by the Vancouver Giants. Connor Bedard makes one more visit to the LEC for the CHL Top Prospects game January 25th. Only way into the sold-out game, purchasing the Top Prospects pack. Starts at $99, includes the Top Prospects game, as well as 3 other Giants contests. February 1st versus Prince Albert, the 24th versus Prince George, March 3rd against Victoria. These packages can only be purchased by calling 604-4-GIANTS. That's 604-444-2687. By the way, Wayne and Brent Gretzky combined for 2,800. Pardon me. Wayne had 2,857 points. Brent had 4. Most points by 2 brothers in National Hockey League history.
And we're getting ripped for not mentioning 2 brothers that played in this city for 20 years and accumulated thousands of points, the Sedins.
But they're not number one.
I know what you're saying, but I mentioned the Mahovlich, so I got ripped in there for what about the Twins?
Yeah, but again, they're not number one.
Yeah, I know.
It's one of the great trivia questions of all time
Yeah.
because Brent only had 4 points. Sutter family, all time.
Love the Sutters.
All time brother point leaders.
Yeah.
There were 6 of them. Okay. Let's show before we get to Farhan, let's show this tweet from ESPN regarding Damar Hamlin of the Buffalo Bills. You want to do the honors there, Rick?
Yeah. Per the physicians caring for Damar Hamlin at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center, Damar has shown remarkable improvement over the past 24 hours. While he is still critically ill, he has demonstrated that he appears to be neurologically intact. His lungs continue to heal. He's making steady progress. Grateful for the love and support we have received.
Yeah, and he's holding the hands of, grasping the fingers of
family members,
those around him in hospital. So positive news there as we bring in Farhan Lalji from TSN. Farhan, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
Always good, especially when you hear positive updates about Damar Hamlin. Pretty scary situation on Monday.
Yeah, as a football coach, what emotions did you go through watching the Bills and Bengals on Monday and what Damar Hamlin went through and what the players who had to witness that went through?
Yeah, I think it was more about the players and less about the game, and I know that there'll be people that will look at that and say, okay, well, that was a football thing, and talk about the impacts of the sport, and it really wasn't, right? I mean, we've seen like 4 or 5 cardiac arrest situations in hockey. Those are not necessarily sport related, or as opposed to where your heart's at, and just kind of unfortunate fluky type situations. Just you see a guy fighting for his life, and you can see the impact that it's having on his teammates, and the thought of them potentially playing again, and the mental health issues that everybody that was on the field is going to have to deal with, and the support that everyone's going to have around them, and the families, and all of those types of things, right? I mean, you think less about the sport and more about the people involved, and it was just a surreal scene that you just hope you never have to watch again, and just thankfully it looks like he's headed in the right direction. I think one of his teammates also tweeted that he's been awake at times, right? So that's certainly incredible news, and something that is going to make it easier for everybody to process and move forward from.
And we're going to talk more about this with Ross Tucker joining us in the next hour. Farhan, we've had this conversation before, but where are you with parents and having their kids play contact sports after watching this on Monday?
I think that I would definitely look. I'm a parent. I've had my son play every contact sport. Right, he's played hockey, football, and lacrosse. Yep. So we've signed up for the tough ones, as you did with your son. Right. I mean, I know he played hockey. I think he played lacrosse as well. And I think a lot of lessons can be learned from contact sport. Right. Like I've kind of said to parents who've asked me about it, I said I think every kid should play a team sport, an individual sport, and a contact sport. Right? because you overcome, you learn a lot of things from every one of those instances, and you overcome and have to fight through things in a lot of those instances. So whether that contact sport is martial arts, whether, it doesn't have to be a team sport or football or hockey, but I just think that, just that physical combat it's a good thing. It helps your mental toughness in a lot of areas. The cynic will probably say, oh, well, you're teaching them to, abuse people and that physical violence is okay. And that's not what you're teaching, right? There's a lot of different challenges people have to overcome in life, and you can learn many of those lessons and how to cope with those challenges in a physical setting.
Farhan, let's get an update from you about BC Lions quarterback Nathan Rourke. He's got more NFL tryouts this week. January 9th is the day he can sign in the NFL. What are you hearing?
Well, I do know he's at a workout today. I'm not sure exactly which one it is. It's interesting. I'm told Kansas City and Cincinnati were among the teams that have requested workouts from him, which to me would be probably the worst situations for him to walk into, given the two of the three best quarterbacks in football play for those two teams, right? And that's not necessarily where you want to go if you want a path eventually to get to the field. Nonetheless, you've got an athletic quarterback in one of those cities that maybe they want more of that in their building. But and again, I'm not telling you that's where he's at today, but I do know that those are two of the teams that had expressed an interest. So he's got a couple lined up for this week. He's got some lined up for next week. You mentioned the 9th as the date, the first that they can sign. So I don't know that he'll take the workouts next week, but there's also not necessarily urgency to get signed right on the 9th. I'm hearing that the offers so far that have come into him have been very strong. The bonuses, not the bonuses, but the guaranteed portions of those contracts are very, very strong. So, I think he's going to wind up with some good options in front of him.
Yeah, that's going to be good for him. It won't be very good for the BC Lions, but that's the way it goes. He's going to have a chance to play in the NFL, and that's great for him. Over to the Canucks, Farhan, 3 straight losses, not good. They've been outscored 13-6 in their last 3. Everyone's talking about Bedard and, go for him, go for Bedard, but it's a little bit late to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, because the contracts and cap situation that this management team inherited were a mess, and this management team made a messier, right? Especially with the JT Miller signing and a few others, right? You just made it really difficult to align and square anything with a rebuild. But I just think eventually this is the way they're going to have to go. I don't think these 3 losses are bad because of that. And I think that what you've got coming up in terms of a schedule right now, where you're going to face Tampa twice, face Colorado twice, face these elite teams over the course of the next 3 weeks, part of me hopes that they just get buried here. So the situation they don't want to deal with is forced upon them, because that might be what it takes, right? And it's not working with this group. That much is clear, right? So every time they get to Gary Bettman's version of 500, they don't stay there long, because they are who they are. And what we're seeing from how this team defends, from their puck management situation, like you look at that last game against the Islanders, and 3 of the goals were just horrific giveaways by their defensemen, including their best defenseman. Mm-hmm. So when you look at it, this is not a good mix, and it should be torn down.
Yeah. Farhan, do you have a problem with JT Miller's on-ice antics?
Yeah, to a point. Look, at the end of the day, if you're backing it up with what your on-ice performance is, I think you got to live with it, right? Yep. And that hasn't happened this year. And this is the same guy that 2 years ago we used to laud him for dragging the Canucks into the fights, right? Yep. And, when the COVID situation happened, and he was the guy that stood up and said, look, we can't play this schedule. This isn't safe. It's not reasonable. And everybody lauded him for the leadership he showed there and how he's the true captain of the Vancouver Canucks. But then there's the other side of it, right, where there's a level of volatility and petulance and all of this that isn't good in any locker room. So, at the end of the day, if you're backing it up with your performance on the ice, people will live with it, and they'll say that's just JT being JT, and it's part of what makes him great. But when you're not playing great, it's tough to stomach.
You're headed to L.A., have I got that right, Farhan? SoFi Stadium, national title game, Texas Christian, Georgia. Have I got that right?
You have got that right. I'm leaving tomorrow. I can't wait. I was in Atlanta for the Peach Bowl last week. That was fantastic.
Wow, that's a place drop there.
Yep.
Hey, Farhan, who wins, and what's that spectacle like?
Oh, it's you guys know me, and I'm a college football junkie. If you give me my preference of any sport, any level, any league, it's U.S. college football at the highest level here. And The spectacle around it is different. If you've never had a chance to go to a game, I encourage you to go to a game because it's different than going to watch the Seahawks play and going to watch the Lions or anybody else play, right? I mean, there's a different type of fandom there with the alumni and those fan bases that are so connected to it, regardless of who's in the uniform, the bands, all of it. It's a lot of fun. As far as this game is concerned, I think Georgia's going to win running away. And people will say to me that, look, how can you say that? TCU beat Michigan, who beat Ohio State, who almost beat Georgia. I just don't see it lining up that way because as well as TCU played against Michigan, they still needed help from Michigan to do stupid things to blow that game and hand it back to TCU. And look, I think TCU was great and good for them for stepping up to the moment, but I just don't think Georgia's going to give them that help, right? They're not going to get the 4 turnovers they got and the silly decisions down at the goal line to hand off to a backup fullback or try the Philly special when you're supposed to have a physical advantage. Georgia doesn't make those mistakes, and TCU is going to need that help. So I think Georgia will win and cover, which is different than most college football playoffs because generally what happens is the semifinals turn into a complete dud and the final is epic. And I think the semifinals this year were incredible. And, I shouldn't say this because I want you to watch it on my network, but at the end of the day, I think it'll be one-sided as far as Georgia beating Texas, TCU, and covering.
Safe travels, Farhan, and we'll talk to you next week, my friend.
Take care, guys.